Are you ready for Judgment Day?
I just made my confession yesterday.
To confession where? To Catholic Church?
Yep.
Are you prepared for eternity? Are you prepared for Judgment Day? I just went to confession yesterday. That's brilliant. He didn't have to cite a chapter and verse of anything. He didn't have to quote an encyclical, a church council, none of that. This man had a pretty good common sense approach. Do you think, as a Catholic evangelist, do you think we ought to be on TikTok?
I think of Jonah being sent to Nineveh and not wanting to go, and the fact that that was where God wanted him.
TikTok evangelization gone wrong. I'm not sure if you caught this video that was flying around the interwebs over the weekend, but it could be one of your sort of nightmare scenarios. I don't know. Maybe it's not, but you're there, you're shopping, you're just trying to get some groceries, right? And then all of a sudden somebody walks up to you with a camera, sticks it in your face and starts asking you questions about your Catholic faith and trying to catch you off guard, unawares, ill-prepared, trying to make you look bad on the internet. What do you do? What do you say? Allie Marie Ingram is going to be on the team. She's got a YouTube channel, but she also had a pretty large TikTok following, which she deleted all of her content. Why is that? The dangers, the difficulties of sharing your faith in the brave new digital world. By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. Have you ever been approached just out of the blue? You're not ready. This gentleman, don't know who he is. He didn't do that bad of a job. I would say he did pretty good because Catholics have a common sense meter about them, at least when they're paying attention, that I think comes in very effectively in times just like this. Let's have a listen.
Are you ready for Judgment Day?
I just made my confession yesterday.
To confession where? To Catholic Church?
Yep.
Did you confess your sins to the Lord Jesus?
Every time I go there,
We don't have to go to a physical man on earth. Through the Lord Jesus.
persona Christi. That's what
All right, it's happening very, very fast here, so I'll break it down for you. The first question, are you prepared for eternity? Are you prepared for Judgment Day? What was the gentleman's immediate request and response to the question? It was, I just went to confession yesterday. That's brilliant. I just went to confession yesterday. He didn't have to cite a chapter and verse of anything. He didn't have to quote an encyclical, a church council, none of that. He instinctively knew that when you go to confession, you are restored in your relationship with God. You receive actual grace communicated through the person who sits in the place of Christ, in persona Christi. Does this man have a PhD in theology? I'm just wondering, because he looks like just your average guy going down a grocery store aisle, just trying to mind his own business. And this man had a pretty good common sense approach, which asked further questions from this Protestant, seemingly anti-Catholic TikToker. But don't you just go straight to Jesus? Shouldn't you just go straight to Jesus, not this man? Let's listen.
the Catholic priest is. That's what it is in the person of Christ.
So he's not Christ on earth.
No, but he's representing Christ on earth. Like St. Peter, the first pope. He doesn't take, but he's in the person of Jesus.
We have to go directly to the Lord. So, you can go right in your bedroom and confess your sins to God.
Okay, so we have to go directly to Lord. That was the man's statement. Okay, so then why did Jesus tell those disciples in the upper room in John 20, whoever sins you forgive are forgiven, and whoever sins you retain are retained? Why would he do that? Why didn't he? If I was Jesus, I would have never said those words, because that might lead to some confusion amongst the apostles and therefore the people who replace them down the road. Some might even call that apostolic succession. You should write that down, coin the term. But nonetheless, that would be confusing, Lord. Why would you say that? Instead, you might have said something like, hey, listen, tell everybody to just come straight to me. In fact, tell them, why are you talking to me? Don't waste your time talking to me. Just go talk to Jesus directly. Wouldn't he have said that if that were the intent and the mind of the Lord? But instead, that's not what he said. Instead, he says in John 20, to those 12 men, or minus one, you had Judas who went out and hung himself, but Matthias will come later. Anyway, he says to them, listen, whoever sins you retain are retained, and whoever sins you forgive are forgiven. Here's a pop question. Hey, how do you know what sins to forgive or to retain unless someone told them to you? You see what I'm saying? Allie Marie Ingram is on our team today. She has a YouTube channel and she had quite a following on TikTok as well. She's been sharing her Catholic faith, her perspective on news, life, family, marriage, music, just about everything. But she recently deleted her TikTok videos, which caught my attention. Why would you do that when you have such a following? And I think it really illustrates the difficulties and the challenges as Catholic evangelists, how to share the good word, how to plant the seeds of inspiration and conversion in the hearts of so many people, and avoid the pitfalls.
You're right that I have 50,000 followers on TikTok right now, and I took all of my content private. However, I did have a platform of 350,000 followers on TikTok that subsequently was banned due to supposed hate speech over pronouns.
Yeah, fun, good times. It's interesting because I have intentionally chosen to never be on TikTok. I've never had an account there. I've never posted any content there. I've always just avoided it. It always felt like the worst of all the rigged systems on social media. All of them have issues, but I felt like that one was the worst. So why did you initially go to TikTok? And of course, as you said, you've received a lot of censorship. So tell me about that.
I had no experience with TikTok. I went in very blindly. I tend to be a very trusting, naive person. And when I started producing content on TikTok, I really was looking for an outlet to have fun because I had been diagnosed with another brain tumor. My second born was 6 months old at the time. And so I basically went there as an escape from being put in this Catholic box on YouTube. And I decided that I wanted to do skits, to have fun with the content that I was producing, kind of more be myself, be that everyday person that I am in the grocery store or everyday person in my house, and talk a little bit less about theology and be more personable, which obviously a lot of people really, really liked. They're like, wow, this girl's has a lot to offer. I'm setting boundaries for people. I'm, kind of working with people on how to be a little bit more assertive because I am a very forthcoming person. And within that, when some people found out that I was also Catholic, which there was never a moment that I didn't have a miraculous medal around my neck. There was never a moment that I covered a crucifix or intentionally, if anything, I was intentionally doing shots. So there was a crucifix in my background and I was never hiding my faith. But then I was accused of hiding my faith because my content wasn't explicitly Catholic when I had my YouTube platform that was in fact Catholic.
Yeah, it's a strange piece of business, isn't it? You want to reach an audience. You want to talk about things that are of interest to you, whatever they may be. And then there's always somebody who just doesn't like it. And when you first started, creating content online, was it hard to kind of grow that thick skin to not let it be so personal to you?
I did take it personally on TikTok. I struggled a lot when I was first attacked on a live, and I do use the term attacked because I was told that I was hateful and homophobic and transphobic when I said, well, I'm not that. No, I mean, this is what I believe. I believe that everybody, basically teaching the true teachings of the church that we love, but no hate like Christian love is what that's met with a lot of times. And so with the censorship and with people mass reporting my page and people started mass reporting my comment sections, which is how my larger platform ended up getting banned. It just, I think that the real issue that we end up encountering is that there is a genuine hate for truth. And I think that a lot of people live in more of an evolutionary perspective nowadays, where what exists in our forefront is what is supposed to be, instead of we were designed for an innate purpose with an innate outcome. And so I think that with my confidence in the truth and my confidence in the faith, there was a level of I'm not going to back down from this. I can't apologize. One of my taglines in that whole debacle was, I can't apologize for the truth. I can only apologize for how I presented it. If I was hateful in how I said something, if I had an attitude, if I made a bad joke, I can apologize for the shortcomings of my own person, but I can't apologize for the fundamental truth behind it. TikTok is different because, first off, for the longest while, you could only upload up to 1 minute. Their comment sections, you are only allowed up to, I believe it's 60 characters. So you're only allowed very short comments. Everything is supposed to be at a very, very high rate of speed. They don't want your attention span to be long. They don't want actual dialogue. They want it feeds off of that negativity bias that we see in the media. That's what TikTok feeds off of. And so when you have the duets, which is where you can take 5 seconds of somebody's video and then create a response video after that, which we now see on Instagram as a remix, but it's not taking off like it does on TikTok. You have stitches that you can just do a side by, or the stitches are that one, I'm sorry. And then the duet is where you're side by side and you're basically making faces, responding to what was happening, or you're agreeing and nodding in agreement the whole way through. So people are watching you watch somebody else's video. There's just this this community that ends up developing is very clear on which side of the aisle you are identifying as, because I think on TikTok, identity is just so rooted in things that are not of God that you end up, it's very easy for somebody to get lost, I think, if they are rooting their identity in anything other than God. And due to the money that is to be had on TikTok, due to people caring about the reputations too strongly, due to a variety of things that desire to join whatever group that is being the most forthcoming with their opinions, that is getting the most accolades, that's getting the least amount of pushback on TikTok. It's just very easy to join that group because everyone's getting notified, the notifications come back. Just the whole dynamic on TikTok is vastly different than anything I would have seen. I had no idea what I was stepping into when all of that took off. I had no idea about any of it.
Do you think, as a Catholic evangelist, do you think we ought to be on TikTok? And if so, how could we leverage that platform to actually be successful?
I think that it is up to the individual. I think of Jonah being sent to Nineveh and not wanting to go, and the fact that that was where God wanted him. I think that we are all called to a very individual purpose, and God is going to speak individually to those people that he wants there. I don't think that any Catholic evangelist should be online on social media if their goal is to gain a following. That should never be our goal, I think, as Catholics. I think it's important to want to reach people, but I also fundamentally believe that we are called to help people one person at a time. And so for me, if I produce content and I post a video and it helps one person, then I feel that that video has served its purpose and it keeps me driving forward. I don't need to gain 100 subscribers from that video. I don't need to, if it's solidifying an already existing relationship, then that is the purpose that God has called me to, and that is the path that I walk on. So personally, right now, I am not on social media on Instagram or TikTok. I took all of my content private on those 2 pages because the comment sections were distracting me from my personal prayer life. It was involving too much of my time when my calling and vocation right now is as a stay-at-home mother to 4 young children, including 1-year-old twins. My time in the home is paramount to anything else, and we have to listen to those convictions as God calls them into our lives. So if you're Jonah and he's calling you to Nineveh, then go to TikTok. You need thicker skin for that, he will provide that. We just have to be sure that we're rooting ourselves in the word, in the rosary, in different avenues that God is calling us to be sure that our faith is being solidified first and foremost, that we are looking to honor God and not honor man. I think that the comment section is where community is built. I find that the only time that I end up blocking or filtering comments is when the same person is mass commenting and bordering harassment. Yes. I think that due to the level of notoriety that I had on TikTok, I mean, I very regularly still get recognized in public, which is strange to me because I don't know. My face is very familiar now. There were a couple years where I was just all over everybody's For You page on TikTok. It's very strange, but my level of notoriety that had happened, I did get a number of, I have been ding dong ditched. People were trying to give out my information. I had to keep an eye on all of that kind of stuff because there was this level of hate that was coming against me, beyond, but Jesus says we will be hated because they first hated him. And so we just kind of have to accept that if we are going to be in this world, because that's just the way that the world thinks. I think that social media, unfortunately, literally and figuratively puts us into boxes. People want to write stories about situations. I don't know if you've ever read the book Crucial Conversations, but it's a very helpful book in gauging our relationship with the world and with other people, and being able to accept what is before us at face value and not writing a story about what it's going to turn into. And so when we're on social media, I think that this goes on a lot of sides of the avenue, right? You can have an LGBTQ person who is creating content that I thoroughly enjoy. And am I doing the same thing that somebody else would do to me to say, oh, well, I know that you're in a same-sex relationship. I can't follow you anymore because you are, acting in a way that's fundamentally different to my foundational beliefs about the world. Would I be doing that same thing to somebody else who is doing that to me, to say, oh, well, and I think that it may very well naturally happen that way when Christ tells us that mother will be divided against daughter, and there are going to be divisions. I think that there is a level of foundational truth that we hold in the world where if somebody does feel that way, they're willfully rejecting God. And that is just a reality of how it works in the world. And if we were at the grocery store, they may or may not walk the other direction because of a crucifix that is hanging around your neck, but that's their relationship with God, and we're not responsible for that. So we have to accept that we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody is going to want to watch our content, and that's okay. Like you said, go watch something else then. You can find what you're looking for somewhere else, because everything that I share is going to have a fundamentally foundational belief in the resurrection of Christ and the glory of his mother, and all of the pieces that encompass what it means to have our community be an eternal community in heaven.
Yeah. I also see there's been a fundamental shift in behavior in society thanks to social media. Look how many headlines we read just this week, if you kept track, of how many YouTubers are getting themselves into trouble in public because they're doing a challenge dance for TikTok. Or I saw one yesterday about a YouTuber that was shooting off fireworks from a helicopter at cars. He kind of went to jail over that. Like, that's a thing. But it happens all the time, right? YouTubers and TikTokers, they're trying to up the game, go as crazy as possible. And they seem to think that they're entitled to be able to do this in the public spaces. Like the video that I showed at the 14 After segment of some Protestant approaching a stranger in a grocery store and then getting into a debate with him. Now, that guy did a great job, in my opinion, but it just seems like that's the antithesis of charity towards one's neighbor. Let me shove a camera in your face and see if I can't get you off guard and make you look the fool so that I can get the accolades from my TikTok audience. Do you see this sort of like, it seems like the opposite of charity to me. Do you see it that way?
I think that some people are not rooted in reality. I think that social media, for those, they call it chronically online. I think those who are chronically online, spending 10, 12 hours a day on social media, they experience it as reality. There are people who are TikTok famous with over 1 million followers who have never performed or done a single function in real life. So there's an income stream, there is this feeling of fame or whatever it may be, a feeling of talent that has not been worked for in a traditional manner that we are biologically wired to have had needed in order to gain that. So I think that social media for some people is reality. And that's why when encountering somebody that is chronically online, there is that tagline that's like, go touch grass. And it's meant literally like, get outside, get off your phone. You need to ground yourself in reality, because where you are right now is so disconnected and out of tune of what is actually occurring in the world is very extreme. Harrison Butker's response to all of his online criticism was astounding to me because it was vacant. He was not in his stories. He did not post a single thing to Instagram. And when I look at his Instagram, I think the last thing he had posted was back in February. He's clearly not rooted online. And his fame is from a very particular skill set. I mean, he is a talented kicker. And so he doesn't need that edification from the online community to know that he knows what the heck he's doing in his life. He's rooted in reality, is what his response showed me. And that, I think, is the most pointed stance and pointed response that anyone can offer when there's this outcry similar to what happened against him.
Do you intend to go back to TikTok? Is that part of your game plan moving forward?
Did Jonah go back to Nineveh? I don't know. Do I want to be swallowed in the belly of the whale again? Not especially. But hey, if God tells me to, I will. I presume that at some point I will be called back. And I am not necessarily looking forward to that day. I think that my mindset would have to be shifted in how I would handle the level of toxicity that is on there, because TikTok is a very toxic place. And I would have to just be in a different state of life. I would have to have a different approach. It would be very guided by the Spirit if I were. But I mean, I would return to Nineveh if that was where I was called. The level of notifications, getting thousands of comments every day and trying to regulate, as I shared earlier in the segment, people attempting to dox me or share information about me that I haven't personally made public. Things like that, where I don't know what would be happening on the platform. And if my content was public, it's still accessible. You never know which video is going to go viral again due to the time of the year. So all these videos could be circulating because I'm currently a hot topic. And I knew that I just didn't want to have to regulate or pay attention to any of that. In addition to that, I did earn an income from TikTok. I think my most successful month was $2,500. And it was just decided that my attention to that needed to stop, that my calling was just to be home, that I was to trust my husband and his income and modify my own budget to accept what that was. And so there was a level of submission to my husband that also came with that.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.